First off, thank you TEDx for even having me. And don't listen to a word that man just said. I think I'm the furthest thing from saying that, we're a biker or we are angry and, that's the general ideology of motorcyclists, even in America or somewhere else, they're all tattooed up and they have this aura about them or this independence or this confidence or this anger or however you want to put it. But motorcycles, have always been a part of my life. And thinking about this talk last night, just to make it easier for myself, I felt like if I was just speaking to my friends or speaking to a common man and trying to explain to him what it is about bikes that truly moves me and how they've been a part of my life, right up till now. I'm 29 years old, been riding for about 23 years, riding since I was 7 years old, been on a bike even before that. So I'll just briefly run you through it and hopefully you'll be able to draw something positive, from the 6 years of work that we've put through. Back in 2009, I finished university in Canada. I'd finished a course of mass media, so journalism and communication. Came back to Bombay. I was looking for a job at that point and got a job for a sports journalist here. I had 6 months to kill, didn't know what to do, went back to Jaipur, that's where I'm from, and was looking for a bike at that point. So Royal Enfield was the only thing around and it didn't really excite me all that much. I tinkered with bikes in my past and having had 6 months on hand and saved a little money and my parents were allowing me to do what I wanted at that point, decided to build myself a bike. So enlisted the help of my dad's old mechanic, Shakurji, who's an ex-racer and a solid chap to have a cigarette and a chai with. So spent about 6 months on the street and we both didn't know how to build a bike, but the idea was there. We didn't know what pipes to use, how brittle they'd be, what kind of carbon content they should have, to the very fact what proportions the bike should have. I'd never seen a custom bike in my life. Like I've always been here, gone to Canada, come back, but never seen a custom bike, let alone built a bike. So here we were 6 months later, we figured it out. We put pipes in the roots of trees, filled them up with sand, welded them on both sides, caught hold of the driver, the Mali, two guys that worked with me and started bending these pipes. So essentially we built the whole skeleton jugaad se. It was all, you want to call it jugaad or innovation, it's the same thing. But we worked our way through those obstacles, There were small problems like what is a half axle, what is a cone set bearing. These technicalities I didn't know, but they became common knowledge 3 days later, a month later, a week later. So if I was to show you, that's the first workshop. Just went out to the hardware store, bought a bunch of tools, set it up, had a drill machine and built our first bike. So that was built in a tree. John Abraham's bike was built in a tree. And the first 3-4 motorcycles I wrenched on and I worked with. This one is called Original Gangster. So as you can tell, it looks nothing like your regular Royal Enfield, straight off the shop. The whole frame has been rebuilt. It has gears in its hands. It has a clean handlebar, internal throttle assembly, Springer suspension. So this was the first bike. So we tried to achieve as much as we could with the first itself. But even looking back on this now, there's massive room for improvement. Aesthetically, functionally, engineering-wise. But yeah, that is the first one that we built. So hang on a second. So the first time that we actually completed that bike, even without paint, it was just there in its raw form. And Shakurji put on both the tires, we got the suspension in place, rolled it out of his shop. And honestly, I remember that point I was moved. I was somewhere else for like a few seconds. I didn't know how it happened, why it happened, but my life was changed from that point on. And nothing was going to be the same again. So, it's always been there inside of me. I had an opportunity to exploit, and we ended up with something half decent. So it's been 6 years since then. We built about 60 bikes now. But it all goes back to the very fact that as a young kid, my dad always had me on a bike. He used to drop me to school on his RD350. 2-stroke machine, that's 3 months old. I don't know, I have a red hair clip, but yeah. And that's my mom. So they've always been there. They've always been all-encompassing, totally engrossing, because in a car you could be listening to music. I have nothing against cars, but I'm just saying it's very disengaging. You could be doing 10 things. You could hit a khadda, come out of it, smoke a cigarette at the same time, talk to your friends, look back, and you'd be fine. On a bike, you do that for 2 minutes, you'd end up in a ditch or half dead. So the tool itself is very powerful. The tool itself is very engaging, and I'm fortunate to be associated and in touch with it since a very early age. So that's my dad's old mechanic, Kailashji, and this is at the age of 7 when he got me to start motocrossing. So he'd take me out on Sundays and my friends for about 4 or 5 years. We used to have a local dirt track bang in the center of the city. And we used to go riding for a few hours, go for a swim after and head home. So it was a good way, growing up at that point, being around bikes, working your problems out. So never had any inhibitions right from that point on. Moving ahead, I'd say that's the first custom Harley that we ever built, full scale. Somebody gave us, a very kind gentleman gave us a Harley Davidson 883 brand new engine, and we set about to just chop it up completely and built the whole frame up, the oil tank, the front springer. It's a linkage suspension, and this was a full aesthetically appealing custom bike. I mean, it doesn't, function doesn't supersede the aesthetic on this one, but that's exactly what it was built for. We moved on, we did another bike for Harley Davidson India, and this was an official build for the company. So they gave us a Harley Street 750, which is their basic model. And they said, what can you do with it? I mean, as far as I remember, the first time when I started working, even having a general Sunday lunch with the whole family would be like, why do you want to make bikes? Why are people going to buy your bikes? My dad kind of got it, but grandmothers and all these guys. So those social pressures were there. I'm sure you have them as well. I mean, whether you want to cook or you want to make clothes or, do anything for that matter. If you have an idea, you have to step into that kitchen. You have to step into the darji's room and, figure out how you want to stitch this piece or what kind of patterns you want. The same thing was with the bikes. So 6 years later, ideas are finally meeting execution. Official companies are coming to us with builds. So don't want to blow my horn too much over here, but I'm just saying, it's been a good feather in the cap. That's a bike we did for Triumph as well. And it's just very comforting to know that motorcycling is finally evolving in this country. I mean, it's a massive industry. As one of my friends said, it's $1 billion worth of industry between 5 feet. These two wheels, it just moves people. And as Dr. Risheda was saying earlier, talking about depression, I mean, it's one of those things that has definitely helped me in my life as well. I wouldn't say I've had, really depressive states but we've all had our life-changing events. And the one stable factor, the one thing that's always given me confidence, independence, cleared my mind, has been a bike. Now, whether that's a 100cc or a 500cc, I mean, I don't want to over-dramatize it, but that's the God-honest truth. And, I'm just very fortunate to be part of this community, to have an elevated sense of how good the world is. I said this yesterday as well. I met some amazing people, rich, poor, old, young, but, they all have a love for bikes and they can all feel that connect. So I'm just thankful that I had it all through my youth and right up till now. But even coming to this point, there have been a lot of hours of going wrong. There have been a lot of times when we've gone 2 steps ahead and 1 step back. But like I said, big problems today are common knowledge tomorrow. And whatever it is that you do, you need to lose those inhibitions. You need to step foot into that dark room. You need to just not be afraid anymore. And I'm not here to preach to you, but I'm just here to share my experience, knowing that an unprofessional, villager like me, who knew a bit about bikes, as long as you had a love for it and kept pushing, sky is the limit, I guess. Thank you.